welcome to the deep dive. We've had a lot of you asking us this question lately. What is the role of the artist,
Yeah.
in a world that seems to be changing like faster than we can really even wrap our heads around?
Yeah, it's a huge question, and one artists have been, kind of wrestling with for ages, right? I mean, for centuries. But luckily, I think we have a really fantastic guide to kind of help us unpack this. We're going to be diving deep into Robert Henri's Art Spirit.
Okay, Art Spirit. I've definitely heard of this one. It's a pretty beloved book, especially among artists.
It really is. Like, you have artists like George Bellows. I don't know if you're familiar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he said that Henri's book was, and I quote, comparable only to the notes of Leonardo and Sir Joshua.
Well, hold on. Okay, to be compared to like Da Vinci and Reynolds, I mean, those are some pretty major like titans of the art world.
Yeah.
Like, what makes Art Spirit so special that it gets put in the same category as their work,
Right. And I think that's kind of the point. When you think about what Da Vinci and Reynolds represent, these weren't just like super skilled painters. I mean, they were, but they were also innovators, thinkers, They were really pushing the boundaries of what art could be. And so their notes, like, those are precious. They give us this peek into their minds, their creative processes, their philosophies on art and life. So when a book like Art Spirit is compared to those notes, I think it suggests that this book goes way beyond, just techniques and stuff. It's about, like, the core of what it means to be an artist, especially in a world that's constantly, like, shifting and changing.
Okay, so it's not just like, here's how to paint a bowl of fruit,
Right, exactly.
It's more about the why, like the purpose behind the art.
Exactly. Like, why art? Why do we do it?
But why should that matter to, like, just someone living in the 21st century?
Well, because, I mean, and this might sound kind of strange, but Henri's ideas about art are actually, in some ways, even more relevant to our modern world than they were when he was writing them over 100 years ago.
What? Really? How so?
Well, okay, think about this. He believed that the joy of the creative process is vital and accessible to everyone. And in a world that's, let's be real, it's super dominated by technology, like information overload, That idea of finding joy in, like, actually creating something new, it feels, I don't know, like even more important now,
Yeah, no, totally. It's so easy to get caught up in the digital world, right? And forget about the power of actually creating something with our hands, our imaginations. But, okay, does this only apply to people who, like, consider themselves artists? What about someone who, I don't know, maybe they don't paint or sculpt,
Well, and that's what's so interesting about Henri. He saw art as way more than just the finished product, right? The thing hanging in a gallery. Like, he believed that it was a way of engaging with the world, a way of seeing, a way of thinking even. Like, it's about finding that spark of creativity in whatever you do. I mean, that could be cooking, gardening, even like problem solving at work, It's about bringing that creative energy, like, to every aspect of your life.
That makes me think of how Henri saw the role of the artist in society. It's like they're these antennas, they're picking up on signals from all the chaos of the world and then translating it into something, I don't know, meaningful, like something that can actually help us navigate this landscape that's changing all the time.
Exactly. And Art Spirit actually talks about this, like how art can help us understand ourselves, and the world around us. It can be a tool for, like, exploring emotions, processing all the stuff that we're going through, finding beauty, even in the places that we don't expect it.
So it's not just about, pretty pictures or whatever. It's about using art to, like, actually make sense of the world, to maybe even tap into something, I don't know, bigger than ourselves. I'm starting to see how this book could be a guide for finding purpose, not just for artists, but for, like, anyone who feels a little bit lost in all of this, in the whirlwind of modern life.
Absolutely. And to really understand the depth of what Henri's getting at here, I think we need to dig into some of the specific, kind of themes that he explores in Art Spirit. He goes deep, he talks about everything from, like, the psychology of artists to, like, the importance of individuality, even the power of observation, which might sound kind of basic, but it's huge.
Wow. Okay. So this book is less of an art manual and more like, I don't know, a treasure chest of wisdom.
It truly is. And as we kind of explore these themes, I think you'll start to see how Henri's vision of, what an artist can be, a force for change, a voice for truth, a beacon of creativity. It really resonates even more strongly in the world we're living in today.
Well, you've definitely got me hooked. Let's jump into these specific themes in Art Spirit. see what they can tell us about the role of the artist in the 21st century.
Let's do it. So, we were talking before about how Art Spirit is like so much more than just an art manual. It really digs into some deep stuff. And one of the things that Henri really gets into is like the psychology of artists.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. What do you mean by that, like the psychology of artists?
Well, he believed that artists, they kind of have this like unique way of seeing and experiencing the world,
Okay.
He called it actually the art spirit, which sounds kind of, I don't know, maybe a little mystical or something.
A little bit.
Yeah. But what he means by that is like, it's this heightened awareness that allows them to perceive beauty, like real beauty and meaning in places where other people might just see like the ordinary.
So artists are kind of like, what, modern-day shamans or something?
Uh-huh. I love that. Yeah, like mystics tuning into a different frequency of reality. And in Art Spirit, Henri actually describes this artistic consciousness as this powerful force, like something that's capable of transforming not just the artists themselves, but like the world around them.
Okay, that's pretty powerful stuff. But how does this art spirit, like how does it actually show up in the artist's work,
Well, he believed that a true artist, they don't just paint what they see, right?
Right.
They paint what they feel. And he actually says this in the book. He says, the artist is forced to paint the thing as he sees it. He cannot be conventional or fashionable. He has to be true, terribly true.
Oh, wow. Terribly true. So it's not just about technical skill, right? It's about like channeling that inner vision, that raw emotion onto the canvas.
Yeah, exactly. And for Henri, like this act of translating personal experience into art, it wasn't just a form of, self-expression or whatever. Like it was a way of connecting with something larger than yourself.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties into the idea of finding purpose, right?
It's exact. If you believe that your art, like whatever that is a way of tapping into some universal truth, some shared human experience, then it gives your work a sense of meaning that goes beyond just, I made this cool thing.
Exactly. It's like you're a part of something bigger. And this actually brings us to another really important theme in Art Spirit, which is like the importance of individuality. Henri, he was all about artists having this unique voice, like a unique perspective that needs to be like nurtured and expressed.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. If art is all about channeling your own unique experience of the world, then like obviously no two artists are going to express themselves in the exact same way.
Right. And Henri was super adamant that artists shouldn't try to like imitate others or conform to, whatever's trendy at the moment. He says, there are many paths, but the artist must discover his own. He must not take the path of others because it is an easy one or because it is a profitable one. He must be true to himself, even if it means being alone. Wow, okay, even if it means being alone. That's like, I don't know, it's kind of scary, but also really inspiring. It's like he's saying, don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to stand out. Your individuality is your strength.
Yes, 100%. And that idea, embracing your individuality, finding your own voice, that's just as relevant today as it was when Henri was writing. I mean, maybe even more so, right?
Totally. I mean, think about it. The world is becoming more and more homogenized, right? Like everyone's trying to fit in, follow the same trends.
Exactly.
So the artist's role, it kind of becomes even more important in that kind of world, right?
It does.
Like they're the ones who dare to be different.
Yeah.
They're the ones who show us that it's okay to like break the mold, to challenge the status quo. They remind us of the power of individual expression.
Yeah.
Like that's your power. But this individuality, this unique vision, it doesn't just like magically appear out of thin air, right?
Right.
Henri believed it had to be cultivated through careful observation. Observation. There it is. You mentioned that earlier. What did he have to say about that?
Well, Henri was like a huge advocate for artists being, really keen observers of the world around them, like just noticing everything. He believed that by truly seeing the world, by noticing all those little details that most people miss, artists could tap into this like deeper understanding of themselves and their place in, the grand scheme of things.
That's so interesting how he connects observation to like this idea of finding purpose. It's like he's saying, the more you pay attention to the world, the more you'll understand your own place in it and the more like meaningful your work will become.
Exactly. He has this great line. He says, the object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable.
Well, okay, unpack that one for me. What does that even mean?
It means that like by cultivating that art spirit, that heightened awareness through observation, you actually become like a conduit for creative expression.
Okay, yeah, I get it. It's like the more you're paying attention, the more the art just kind of flows through you. It becomes this natural extension of who you are and how you see the world.
Exactly. It's not something you force, it's something you cultivate.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like the artist is this bridge between like the seen and the unseen, the ordinary and the extraordinary. They take what they observe from the world and they transform it into something that can like inspire us, provoke us, and ultimately help us make sense of our own experiences.
Yes, and it's through that process of observation, of filtering the world through their unique artistic lens, that they're able to, express their individuality and contribute something truly original to the world.
This is all so fascinating, but I'm curious, how does this translate for people who, maybe they don't identify as artists? Like, if observation is this key element to developing an art spirit, does that mean everyone needs to start, like, sketching or painting?
That's such a great question. And, while Henri was, specifically talking to artists, I think his ideas about observation, individuality, and the creative process, they have implications for everyone, like regardless of whether they consider themselves, quote unquote, an artist or not.
I mean, I'm already starting to see how these ideas could apply to like everyday life.
Yeah.
It's like by embracing those principles of observation and individuality, we can all tap into that art spirit and bring a more, creative and mindful approach to everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're back, and we've been talking about Henri's art spirit and how it sheds light on the role of the artist, not just in the art world, but the world as a whole.
Yeah, and I think one of the key takeaways here is that, Henri believed artists have this special art spirit, right?
Right.
This like heightened awareness, sensitivity that lets them see the world differently.
Yeah, and before we were talking about how observation is crucial for developing that art spirit. But I'm kind of wondering, like, how does that apply to people who don't really see themselves as, artists in the traditional sense of the word?
That is such a good question because Henri didn't believe art was like limited to just studios and galleries.
Okay, yeah.
He saw it as like a way of life, like approaching everything with curiosity, openness, and this willingness to see the beauty in, just everyday stuff.
So even if we're not like painting or sculpting, we can still practice those same observational skills that, artists use.
Oh, totally. In Art Spirit, Henri talks about how artists train themselves to see the world with, like, fresh eyes, to notice the subtle nuances of light, color, form that other people just miss. And he really believed that anyone could cultivate that same kind of attentiveness, that appreciation for the details, by just making a conscious effort to pay attention.
So it's like a mindfulness practice almost.
Yeah, like instead of just going through the motions, on autopilot, you slow down. You really take in your surroundings.
Yeah.
And the more we practice that mindful observation, the more we start to see the world in a new light. We start to appreciate the beauty in the ordinary, the unexpected connections between things, the hidden patterns, stuff you only see if you're really paying attention.
That makes me think of what you said earlier about how Henri believed art could help us like make sense of the world, right?
Exactly.
It's like by honing our observation skills, we're not just seeing more clearly, but we're also understanding more deeply.
And that deeper understanding, that can lead to a sense of purpose, a feeling of connection to something bigger. It's like Henri saying, look, the world is full of wonder and meaning, but you got to be willing to look for it.
Man, that's inspiring. But I think for a lot of people, the idea of finding purpose through art can feel kind of intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not creative or I don't have any talent. Did Henri have any like advice for overcoming those kinds of, self-limiting beliefs?
He did. He believed everyone has that creative spark inside them, but it gets buried under like self-doubt, fear. He says the work of art is the result of a long series of efforts which may have begun in vagueness. The start is made in the artist's experience of life.
So it's not about like suddenly becoming some kind of virtuoso overnight. It's about trusting the process, allowing yourself to experiment, make mistakes even, and gradually uncovering your own like unique voice.
Yes, and he encouraged everyone to find their own unique form of creative expression. It doesn't have to be, the classic stuff. Painting, sculpture, could be gardening, cooking, writing, even just the way you approach your work or your relationships.
I love that. It's like he's saying, don't limit yourself to the traditional definitions of art. Find what lights you up, what makes you feel alive, and go for it. Pursue it with passion and curiosity.
And by doing that, you're not only tapping into your own creative potential, but you're also adding to the beauty and wonder of the world.
This has been such a cool dive into art spirit and how Henri's vision of an artist fits into today's world. What really sticks with me is that art isn't some luxury, you know?
Yeah.
It's a necessity. It's how we find meaning, purpose, connection
Yeah.
in this crazy, chaotic world that can often feel so overwhelming.
And to quote Henri one last time, art, when really understood, is the province of every human being. It is simply a question of doing things, anything, well. So it doesn't matter if you're a painter, a poet, a gardener, a parent, whatever. Approach your life with that art spirit, that intentionality, that creativity.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. Embrace your creativity, find your voice, let your art spirit shine in everything you do. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.